And
Anyway,
now see that's something that like kind of like gets under my skin as well. As like we were talking about kids not knowing these old Western movies, like that a kid will not know what Little House on the Prairie is nowadays. So it kind of like goes over their head. But I don't know. I feel like there's at least in modern pop culture, there's been a reemergence of the Western pretty hard. And we were talking about happy Westerns, or I don't know, I guess Westerns that just aren't depressing. I want to
right,
ask,
that's
did
a
you
better word. Yeah.
see it was probably one of my favorite westerns of the last few years. The films that the Coen brothers have been doing have been phenomenal. Their remake of True Grit was
Yeah.
top notch. I didn't
Buster
think that.
Scruggs, great movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say Buster Scruggs
Yeah.
really resonated with me because it kind of like picks up that like tall tales, like folksy,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
kind of aesthetic, and it I don't know, I'll just all those little short stories really go ahead, and like mind you, some of them are really sad, like the one with where they had like the
Spoiler
traveling.
alert, spoiler alert.
Yeah, yeah, with, Liam Neeson. I mean, ooh, he's a bastard. Yeah, he's a bastard in that one. But, then you get, like, the musical ones that are just really lighthearted and fun. I mean,
Yeah,
I feel like that movie was phenomenal.
it really was, and I like you said, I loved that tall tale aspect of it, and the fact that they kept going back to the end, the last paragraph of that story. I was like, "Boy, you guys are you wow." The costuming was good, the sets were good, the I didn't know what to expect when I saw the first segment.
Yeah.
I thought, "Oh, the whole movie is gonna be about this outlandishly dressed guy who is, the most amazing gunslinger in the world," and then he dies, and I was like, "Oh, well, wait a minute, so now where are we gonna go?" And then it took into another segment. I guess I didn't get it. I didn't read the synopsis, but, I just thought the whole thing was brilliant. I can't say anything bad about the whole I'm Tom Waits as a minor? I mean, oh my gosh. Anyway, it's great. The whole
Yeah,
thing was great.
I just love when Tom Waits shows up in anything.
Yeah,
Even like those like weird like oh god, what was the name of that movie? It was a super surreal movie. I think it was called like The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. And like
something like
Tom
that, yeah.
Waits
Whoa,
just
I didn't see that.
shows up as the devil. And he's like, dressed in like a bowler hat and like a tuxedo. So he's like really like, like Snidely Whiplash style
Right.
villain, which is great. But I love seeing Tom Waits in anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was pretty amazing, and I think that the Coen brothers did a terrific job with it. You're right on. And when I mentioned that a lot of the movies that I'd seen were depressing, I didn't think about Buster Scruggs because it's not. And there are a few people. There's a lot of independent westerns out there. I was recently in one that had a really great feel good idea. It was kind of a hallmarky type feel to it,
Okay.
and I was glad to see that. A lot of the times when I get hired to do movies, and a lot of us out here get hired to do these independent movies, we don't know anything. We don't know what it's going to be like. We don't know if it's going to be any good, and we certainly don't know if it's going to be a really depressing movie. But we want to be a part of it. Um, so I hope that people make more upbeat ones. We need that Clint Eastwood hero back. I
Yeah.
think maybe that would help. John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, Gary
I mean
Cooper,
I don't know,
Michael
America's
Scott.
always been so, like, hero-centric too. I feel like that's why superhero movies are, doing so big at the box office is because, I mean, Captain America, he represents that same kind of stoic character that, he's not gonna bend his values or his integrity for anything.
Right.
And that's what really makes the Western resonate with people is just that timeless kind of valiant hero. And, I don't know, the thing that I love about those independent westerns is that the reason why the western was so prevalent in the early days of Hollywood is because of how cheap it was to make. You could reuse sets, reuse costumes, reuse horses. You just had to change actors. And they and then you really didn't even have to change actors because they just rotate them out every now and
Yeah,
again.
that's right. Yeah.
I mean, how
Yeah.
many different villains did Lee Van Cleef play? I
Right.
mean, in the Dollars trilogy, he's playing too, right? Uh, but uh, but because they were so cheap to make, they were able to crank them out. I
Yeah.
That's what I love about independent films getting into the Western genre is because they're doing it for the same reasons, but you know I love seeing movies that are made outside of the studio influence, right? So it's more true to the creator's intent, depressing or not, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, and I think you're right on. The one good thing I can say about all of these, even the depressing westerns, I'm going to create a new genre, depressing westerns, is that they're really paying a lot more attention than they did back in the 60s and 70s to period correct stuff, which I think is fascinating, and it's obviously important to me as a sort of a armchair historian, but it's just really great that they even care to pay attention to that. I wish I could. I wish I could get hired as a historian on a film. I think that would be really cool. Um, I probably would lose a lot, but still, it's the fact that you can sit there and say, "Yeah, that shirt's right," or "That gun belt's right," or "Wait a minute, they didn't have bottles like that back then." Any of those things. Um, they really pay a lot more attention than he did in the 70s. For instance, the spaghetti westerns, all filmed in Spain and Italy
Mhm.
and other places. Um, they didn't care that much, but they did care. They cared a little bit because a lot of it is right. They get some things right in those movies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I sometimes I love like, rewatching those movies and just learning of the historical inaccuracies. Like I want to say, looking at the spaghetti westerns, there's a scene in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly when Eli Washer Tuco like goes into the store and he's just like throwing like random gun parts together. He's taking like
Yeah,
part of a Colt, part of a Schofield, and he's just like, creating this gun that would never be able to historically shoot. But
correct.
I mean, it just kind of like focuses on like the detail and like I don't know, just actually how complex those little guns were. I mean,
Right,
people don't really realize how much ingenuity went into everything that they had back then because it had to. They're doing
right.
most of that stuff by hand. They didn't have machines in factories to make that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that one's particularly funny because of the fact that behind him in the street, a Civil War battle is going on. Uh, and he's putting together a cartridge gun that, anyway, it's kind of funny. But yeah, it's that kind of thing that we like. I think the spaghetti westerns are really good because they show the grittiness and the dirtiness, and they show these like little towns that are made of adobe huts, which I would assume a lot of the old west in the southern portion where I live was like. I've seen pictures. They look like those sets
Yeah.
in Italy and in Spain. It was just run down little old hovels. Uh, and the fact that everybody was so dirty, yeah, I would like to think they would probably wash their face every once in a while back then, but boy, in the spaghetti westerns, they didn't care. Everybody had to look like they've been working on the bottom of a car for a week.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, even though it's not technically a spaghetti western, I feel like the era of the traditional western kind of ended or came full circle with Unforgiven, which is probably outside of Once Upon a Time in the West, my favorite western. Just
Ah,
everything about that thematically, kind of the deconstruction of those deconstructionalist westerns in a way, because I mean it's not overtly supposed to be the man with no name, but interviews that he wanted to bring that same spirit to kind of bring closure to that whole saga, which I thought
hmm,
was phenomenal.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, the whole William Money thing, and I mean, how can you go wrong with Gene Hackman as the bad guy? I mean,
Yeah.
you cannot go wrong if you have Gene Hackman as your bad guy. You just can't. But wow, I never thought of it in that light. That's thank you so much. That's interesting. You
Yeah,
know,
well, I mean, I don't know. I love that movie, and actually, a funny story about that. So, I had this history teacher in high school, and he knew I was into the Old West. So, and I had a bunch of westerns. So, he was just like, you know what? Hey, Jimmy, I just want Friday to be a blow off day, right? So just bring in, I don't know, we'll watch some old Western. I'm like, okay, I can bring in some DVDs. So I go and I just grab like 5 or 6 DVDs, and I just bring them all in. And I just Unforgiven was in the lot. There was probably a spaghetti western and probably Shane in there as well as High Noon. And he chooses Unforgiven because he had never seen it before. And then he pops it in the DVD player during history class. Then it opens on that scene where he's cutting the whore in the whorehouse.
Yeah.
And he just like rushes across the room, flips over his desk to try and get there in
And
time.
you said, should have told you. Sorry. You didn't
Oh,
ask.
yeah. That was right. Oh, yeah.
Whoops.
Sorry. Forgot about that opening scene. My bad.
Yeah. Keep it playing. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know, like that film went out of its way to be historically accurate as well. I feel like a lot of the Clint Eastwood westerns, when he was directing, he tried
Yeah.
to keep it as realistic as possible. Because Pale Rider
Mostly.
is another
Yeah.
one that's great.
Mostly. Yeah. You know, it's funny. I was going to say the funny thing about that movie that always makes you laugh is the fact that every time the actor speaking tells the story of what the cowboys did to the girl, they always add something, cut her
Yeah.
eyes out, cut her head off, disemboweled her. Anyway, yeah, Clint Eastwood is usually pretty good about that stuff. Although Pale Rider, honestly, there's a lot of, I don't know why he did it. I wasn't sure what he was thinking, and maybe he didn't care. But the scene where he goes and he kills the John Russell character at the end of the movie, he's
Mhm.
walking down and he's loading his percussion firearm. Yet he's got a whole belt full of cartridges. So and he's also taking the cylinder out and reloading it, which is not unheard of.
Yeah.
But the whole thing just didn't make sense. And I thought, well, what was Clint thinking of at that moment? What was going through his mind? Because most people don't care. You may not care unless you know about percussion firearms and cartridge firearms. But I saw it when even as a kid, I knew the difference. I thought, well, wait a minute, why has he got both of those on his gun belt? I don't know what's going on here. So, um, so Clint is not always perfect in that respect, but none of them were.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I don't think. Well, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I guess there's that. There's a whole like subgenre of westerns that are just those westerns that are purposely over the top, because like you look at like a movie like Django Unchained, like everything about that movie is just completely over the top
right?
and
And it's supposed to be because
exaggerate. Yeah, exaggerated.
Quentin Tarantino knows better. He does. He loves the genre. He knows better. He just wanted it to be that.
Yeah.
The Hateful Eight is a good example. Did you see the Hateful Eight?
I love the Hateful. I liked Hateful Eight a lot more than I like Django Unchained, because Django's got the style, but Hateful Eight has the substance. Like that is just a grounded,
Right.
realistically driven character drama.
Right. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. People ask me, well, what's it like? And I said, did you ever see the Inglorious Bastards? Oh yeah. Remember that scene in that bar underneath the ground? The whole movie is that scene. It's just stretched out. You have that suspense, you have that distrust. But boy, as much as Hateful Eight is kind of a rough movie to watch, um, as far as the language and the violence and all that stuff goes, it's really
Yeah.
entertaining and he did a great job. See, so that's why I'm telling you, he knows what he's doing. He just knew that Django had to be a stereotype of that genre.
Yeah.
That's what he was trying to do.
Yeah, and well, I mean, I don't know. I liked Hateful Eight quite a bit because it focuses on, something that you don't often see in the old west, which is wintertime. There's
Yeah,
most westerns, they take place in like you based out of Arizona, Texas, really down in the southwest region. But looking at different regions within that era, you look at the different ways that they had to survive. And I mean, just how dependent they had to be on each other when something as simple as a big snowstorm had come through.
right. And you have to think about the fact that in that stagecoach station, I think it was a stagecoach. It was a stagecoach station, right?
Yeah.
They had one fireplace. That was it. Heating that whole room. Um, Now, once again, I live down south. It's been a long time since I've been up north. I don't know if a fireplace can emanate that much heat just from the front of it and warm a room. Maybe it can, but it's funny because you watch it and they're all still wearing their coats halfway through the movie. So it was cold.
Oh yeah. Well, and one of the interesting factoids about that one as well is that Quentin Tarantino went out of his way to make sure that the heat was not working and that they were working in those extreme cold temperatures. So whenever you see like the breath come out of their mouths, like that's actually because they were a lot of that was filmed in a freezer, so that was all real. That wasn't CGI added in, which takes it to a whole new level of dedication.
Boy, I tell you, that's amazing. I didn't know that. Huh. Wow. Thanks for educating me on that. That's cool.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite. I mean, as far as like examples of modern westerns that really, gets the feel right. Hateful Eight goes at the top of that list because there's not too many made these days, and when something that good comes out, it just kind of. I don't know, just kind of gives you some appreciation for the things that had come in the past. I mean, even something like well, I was even though I didn't like the seasons that came after, Westworld I thought was a phenomenal show. And even if you were to like remove all the sci-fi elements out of it and just stick on those flashback sequences where they're going through the park, and having that old West style adventure, you could cut that to where it's just a Western based on that alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoyed that. I haven't seen this season though, because I understand they're no longer in Westworld
Yeah, that's why I'm not
and they're somewhere
necessarily.
out in the world. So I think the season's out, isn't it? But whatever. I haven't really seen it because at this point, it doesn't seem like Westworld to me, but I understand the idea and it was really cool. I mean, who wouldn't want that, right? And it wasn't in the original Westworld and in this one, it wasn't just Westworld. I think it was Roman World in the
Yeah,
original one and some other worlds.
yeah, they had a
They had
samurai
something
world.
to tweak everybody's fantasy. So I thought that was kind of cool. And um, I mean, who wouldn't want that? That sounds cool. You think you're shooting a snake, but you're really shooting a robot. That's
I mean, I would love. I don't want to say the extent of where Westworld goes with like the violence and debauchery, but I love the idea of like if you had like a large acreage that you could have built a small town on and had people come out and just go camping out on it in like period tents and stuff, using all period stuff, and of course you send out like a guide with them, right? But just something about being on horseback, camping out under the stars, in the middle of nowhere, and actually being able to get away from this modern world. I don't know,
right.
something about that I think just resonates with people.
Not even a little bit of debauchery.
I mean, just we'll keep
Fine.
it PG-13.
Okay, all right, fine. Yeah, it's funny. Arizona Red, who you've seen in some videos, and Dirty Dan and I, and some of the others, we've always wanted to like go out and just camp and do the whole living history Old West thing. And for the most part, when we do all hang out together, we're kind of Old West, even though we've got trucks.